releases. I really appreciate the one being the first that's chosen to do this, and so love it, absolutely love it. She also has a book coming out. I'm going to be interviewing her the 22nd of December. It's going to be absolutely awesome. And it's entitled Being Beautiful on the Inside and Out. And I can't wait to talk to her about that, because under nowadays that we only look for the outer beauty and we don't look at what's going on the inside. And so, you know, I'm really excited about interviewing Beth. And I understand that after she was on The Voice, that Kelly Clarkson wanted to do work with her. Going to be talking to her a little about that. She's on tour and doing so much right about now. And so I'm excited to be interviewing her on the 22nd. There's some great interviews from the 1st right until the end of the month. So for those of you that are artists that want interviews, I'm booked up all the way till January. So you gotta wait till the new year. There's no more room on my show for the month of December, and I'm grateful for that. So, having said that, we're gonna play a bit of Mary Cross. Love her music. I want to send a shout out to one of my sponsors, Pasquale Landi in Italy. Thank you so much for all that you do. And I will get that pre-recorded show up for you so that you can send it to all of your DJ friends and all of the networks out in Europe. I will be sure to get that to you shortly. So we're going to move into some amazing music. So last week's interview with Mary Cross, she has 2 tracks. She's in the process of doing some more material, but there's a track that's called In Love There's a Risk, another one called Promise. And I would just suggest that wherever music is sold, you go and download the song. Secondly, I'm going to play There Is a Season a second time. Now, I never usually play one song twice in the same show, but I love it so much. I started crying as I was listening to it. I was like, God, please let this season be over. It's been a long one. But there's some new material coming out of Cloud Records, and this artist is, it's a beautiful duet. Kind of reminds me of a cross between Whitney Houston and Josh Groban, and it's beautiful. So I'm going to be playing Beth. I'm going to be repeating her song. Then we're going to be playing the track that's coming from Cloud Records, and we're going to play some Mary Cross, hopefully to get it all in within the next 15 minutes before we bring Kingsley Gilliam on to talk about today's subject of Ethiopia and her connection to Black history. I'm really, really excited, so get your pens, get your paper, get ready to learn. It's always a wonderful, wonderful time to learn about who we are as African people every Monday, and I'm so blessed to have Kingsley Gilliam on to talk to us about the connection with Ethiopia, Africa, and Black history. So in the meantime, we have the beautiful Mary Cross, and I'm going to be playing her song. It's entitled In Love There's a Risk.
Can shoot all the stars and still breathe. But there's something in the air we can't, 'cause we both know, we both Your face. It's a season of change. There is a time to be born, time to die, time for war, time for peace, time to cry, time to love, time to destroy, time to rebuild, time for love. Don't be afraid, God will make everything beautiful in His time. There's a place for you. There's a place for you. Where love waits to show you the way. Pour yourself out. Never hold back. God's grace will take you there. Oh, yes, it will. Take you there. It's a season of change.
Are you feeling lonely, dejected, or on the verge of giving up? Then tune into TOG Radio, the station that has the medicine to make you whole and makes you want to live again. TOG Radio, 105.3 FM from Bronx, New York.
This one's for our brothers and sisters over in Haiti, suffering. We want to uplift you.
You're locked into the Black Rose of Durham radio show with your host, Cora Reed. This hour is sponsored by the virtual Songs of Hope Christmas concert. You need to save the date for December 23rd, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, with artists from all over the world, such as Benji Myers, all the way from Kingston, Jamaica, Carmela Green with sopranos like you've never heard before, Capathia Jenkins and her new release, I Am Strong, spoken word, and so much more. This concert is to raise funds for the island of Haiti that has been devastated by more than one earthquake in less than 2 years. And so Christmas is a season and reason for love and giving. We're asking you not to only attend this amazing event, but to have an open heart and open wallets to give to the needs of those in Haiti. We're looking forward to you joining us on December the 23rd, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Look out on YouTube and Facebook for Cloud Records LLC. This is truly an event you cannot miss. And remember, we are truly better together than we are apart.
You will regain, yes you will, and rebuild your city.
You're locked into the Black Rose of Durham radio show at www.theblackrose.durhamradio.com with your host, Cora Reed. This hour is sponsored by Malia Shahid's second annual toy and food drive at Kendallwood Church, December 5th from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Every year, City Councilor, Ward 4, Malia Shahid hosts this event to help the needs of those within the Whitby area. We are asking you to make a difference by purchasing a brand new toy or bringing a non-perishable food item or cash donation to 300 Kendallwood Road, Whitby, Ontario, L1 Enniston Norman 2G3. This is a wonderful event where all of Durham's leaders and community come together to make a difference. We know that COVID has had an impact financially and causing food security amongst those within the Whitby and Durham area. You can make a difference by dropping off a brand new toy, non-perishable food item, or cash donation, and come and join us with Christmas carols, hot chocolate, outdoor concert, and so much more. Your host, Cora Reed, will be singing Christmas carols and hosting this event. Know that we are truly better together than we are apart, and we are looking forward to seeing you on December the 5th. Lock the date on your calendar. This is an event you cannot miss. Please join us at Malia Shahid's second annual food drive. You're locked into the Black Rose of Durham radio show at www.theblackrose.durhamradio.com with your host, Cora Reed. This hour is sponsored by Cloud Records LLC. Cloud Records is an independent-based record label in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. They create music that inspires because they are inspired. They focus on music that elevates, encourages, motivates, and helps to move the culture and world to a more positive place. It is for this reason I present two wonderful and talented artists, Capathia Jenkins and her new release, I Am Strong, and Carmela Green and her new release, Jesus Christ is Lord. You can learn more about Cloud Records LLC artists by visiting their website at www.cloudrecords.com. Follow them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Cloud Records LL1. You can find their songs on all music platforms. And remember, we are better together than we are apart.
Good morning, friend. Here's your friendly announcer.
Locked into the Black Rose of Durham radio show with your host, Cora Reed, broadcasting all the way from Canada, Ontario, a little town by the name of Bowmanville. My name is the Black Rose of Durham, Cora Reed, coming to you this 5:35 on the PM on the BlackRoseOfDurhamRadio.com. I want to send a special shout out to the Favvor Zone family that is locked in right now, as well as the TOG family. I want to send a shout out to Elder Neville Ferguson. By the way, fam, he's going to be on the Black Rose of Durham radio show tonight, 9 to 12 on Mondays, Wednesdays, and I believe Fridays. And I'm going to be broadcasting on his networks on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Sundays. So it's going to be all things awesome. Thank you, Neville, for this opportunity to be able to widen the reach in broadcasting. Now, I made the mistake. I said Atlanta. It's actually Virginia. Atlanta is 15 hours away. So all the folks in Virginia, thank you for receiving me. This show is called Difficult Discussions, and it's dedicated to Africana studies, learning the truth about African history and its context. I also want to send a shout out to the TOG family, 105.3 FM. I want to send my love to Dr. Neville and Lilith Morgan. Thank you so much for the opportunity to broadcast on your networks. And so we are truly better together than we are apart. So now we've come to the time of the show where we are going to have the discussion. And today's topic is on subject of Ethiopia and Black history. And you know, the reason I decided to pick today's topic, we're going to have Kingsley Gilliam on this week and next week to talk to us about the subject of Ethiopia and Black history, because many people within the community don't consider Ethiopia as being Black, right? And so, you know, one of the things that I learned in doing this series with Dr. Catherine L. Adams, who's a professor out of Claflin University, that Black people are not a homogeneous group of people, meaning that we're not just one-dimensional. There's much culture within our culture. So Africa is diverse, you know, from Tanzania to Nigeria to Ghana to Ethiopia. You will go from place to place, and it's like you're in a completely different country, although you're in the same continent. We know that Egypt was only something that we think of as outside of Africa, where it's clear looking at the map, Egypt is not separate from Africa. And so in understanding the truth behind African history, we then reclaim who we are as Black people. Now, there's also a divide between people calling themselves Black and people calling themselves of African descent. Some that don't want to be deemed Black. So we're going to talk about the construct of race, where that came from, what are the proper terms to be calling us as African people, and why there's such division amongst our community. And so it's, take out your pen and your paper. You're learning at a university level, and it's important to know who you are, where you came from, who you are, so that you know where you're going. It is my pleasure to introduce to the Tog and Virginia family, Mr. Kingsley Gilliam. Kingsley, I want to welcome you again and want to thank you so much for being with us today on the Black Rose of Durham radio show. We're currently broadcasting in Canada, all over the world from my networks. We're also in New York, 105.3 FM, and their networks. We're now in Virginia. And so you've got a good group of people that are locked in and listening and ready to learn more about African history. So welcome, welcome, welcome again to the Black Rose of Durham radio show.
Thank you very much, Coran. Good evening to you. Good evening to all your listeners in for the Eastern Time Zone. And to all other time zones, good night and good morning.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to be with you once more.
Yes, it's a pleasure to have you. This show was birthed out of a discussion that you and I had a long time ago. I've been doing a lot of work with you in the community, and for those that are just joining in from Favvor Zone Radio, I do a lot of advocacy work in the community as it relates to anti-Black and systemic racism. And Kingsley and I have had the pleasure of working together with leaders, politicians in the community to make a huge difference within the Durham region. And Kingsley has done a tremendous amount of work. So for the people in Virginia who aren't familiar with who you are, I would love it if you were to share just about 5 minutes about the work that you've done, maybe a little bit of what the organization Black Action Defense Committee, Dudley Laws, and some of the credibility that you have in teaching these subjects. And then we're going to move into the meat of the discussion, and the discussion is Ethiopia and Black history. So would you be okay to share a little bit of your bio, some of the things you've done? It's a long one, I know. Let's condense it to about 3 minutes.
Thanks, Nora. Thanks, Nora. What I can say is essentially this, that I've been in Canada for 52 years. I was born in Jamaica, came to Canada in 1969, and I immediately got involved with activism. Prior to that, though, my life changed when I was probably 18 or 19, and I was riding a train from Montego Bay to Kingston. And I bought a book on the train, Martin Luther King's book, Why We Can't Wait. And in that book, there is a prolific letter he wrote from Birmingham jail. And after going through reading that, it really inspired me significantly about work and conditions of the Black people in the United States and elsewhere. And I had the good fortune to see Martin Luther King in person deliver the valedictorian address at my brother's graduation from University of West Indies in 1965.
Wow. That's awesome. Okay.
Yes. And so that was awesome. And so since then I read more of his books, little more of his speeches. Then I had the opportunity to, while I was a student at Bellevue Psychiatric Hospital in Kingston, I got to know Amy Jakes Garvey, the later wife of the late Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who has been his mouthpiece since he died. And Amy Jakes Garvey, in those days, Marcus Garvey was seen as a pariah in Jamaica. And an unknown quantity, but Amy Jakes personalized him and brought him life as to what he was about.
Okay.
And gave me an interest in him. And since then, we have collected many books on Garvey. Listened to a number of his actual speeches and read a number of his personal newsletters and these type of things that his newsletter, The Watchman, and other publications, so on, with prolific stuff that tell us about the condition of African people.
Right.
And when I came to Canada, I was faced with racism immediately, and we got involved. Within 4 months, I co-founded an organization, the West Indian Society of Sudbury, which is Sudbury, Ontario, where I lived at the time. And then I got, later on, I ended up becoming president of that organization and did a number of things. Then I got nominated for vice presidency, vice chairmanship of the National Black Coalition of Canada, which was the organization that represented all black in Canada at the time. And my competitor, one of the founders of the organization, withdrew, Dr. Dorothy Wills, and I was acclaimed national vice chairman and had a portfolio of law and justice. So I've been in the trenches for all these things at the national and other levels.
Okay.
I've also done a lot of work throughout Canada and in the diaspora and in Africa, having design and delivered training programs in Africa, in Ghana, Nigeria, and we work with people on other projects in South Africa, elsewhere. So I do have some presence on the continent. As a matter of fact, one of my colleagues in South Africa, professor of economics at the University of Witwatersrand, we have a daily teleconference and prayer group.
Hey.
And today was on another call when he called and I missed that. But this is a daily thing. So we go far back. We do all kinds of things, yes. But, yeah, so I'm aware of, I have done a fair amount of work and research in these issues, and I'm able to hold my own. I'm not professing to be an expert in any way, shape, or form, but I do have some knowledge which is hard to refute.
Okay, I would have to agree with that. And I would disagree with you. I'd say that you are definitely a teacher, and I've learned so much about myself as a person and black person, and really hoping to pass that on to those of African descent and those that are non-African so that we can know the truth and put Africa back in her place. That is at the rightful place, at the table, where she belongs, equal to every other person on this planet. And so today's subject is on Ethiopia, because, and the reason I chose the subject today, as we were pre-talking about this today, there's a lot of interchangeable terms when using the term African descent or Ethiopian or enslaved or black or slave. So there's a lot of terms that are out there. And one of the things that I discovered in doing the 6-week series with Dr. Catherine L. Adams, doing the series with Floyd Heath, on the Canadian perspective and also with yourself, was that Ethiopia came up quite a few times. Where Europeans would call black people Ethiopians, then black people wouldn't call themselves Ethiopians. And then even sometimes, even today, you have people that go, do not call me black. I am not black. Let me say that I'm from African descent. Or you will have people that would say, I am not African. I'm sorry, you know. And so we want to debunk the myths behind, or you'll even have people that will say Ethiopians are not really Africans, right? And so we want to take away all the divisions because it's important that we know that African people or black people, homogeneous is not the term for us. Diversity, even within our own communities as people are from African descent. So I wanted you to come on and sort of give the detail and the context so that people understand when you read about River of Euphrates, for example, in the Bible, or the term Ethiopia, or the term Cush, or you read even about people that were enslaved, calling those that were enslaved Ethiopians. Instead of calling them Negroes, they would call them Ethiopians. So I wanted to just sort of clear up the misunderstanding and have you teach on the context of what is happening with the community in embracing Ethiopia. What are some of the divides that we have? Why are they there? And what can we do as a community to move forward past the real Africans versus the non-real Africans, right? And really learn to unite as a people from African descent.
Okay. Well, I will try to answer that, but let me face that by saying this. I just posted on my Facebook page an article just minutes ago. 2 articles. One about the historical record of the presence of African people in the world.
Mm-hmm.
That dates back over 200,000 years.
200,000 years? Wow.
That's correct.
200,000 years. Oh, Zers. Okay.
And the history of Europeans or white people, it's within the period of 22,000 to 8,000 years.
22,000 to 8,000 years. Okay, so we're talking 200,000. Oh, wow. So is it scientifically proven?
Yes. These are official records. Look at the full-fledged articles are posted. One of them is a study published by New York Times.
Wow. Okay, I'm writing this down.
Shows that the whole world was populated out of a single migration out of Africa.
Oh my gosh, serious.
And that DNA testing has, with some original group that has not changed in millennia, the group in millennia have they use them as the baseline for the DNA tests, and they tested people all over the world, and they have the same DNA structure.
Oh my God.
For no matter where on earth you go, you see black people, they came as a result of that migration. And
so in other words, every single person came from a black person.
Everyone. I attended a lecture at University of Toronto some years ago by professor, who published a paper saying that we're all Africans. That was the title of his thing. And he showed genetic evidence that people in every race and scattered all over the world had a genetic marking that showed a mutation that occurred in the Rift Valley in East Africa some hundreds of thousands of years ago.
Wow. Wow.
And that it is in every race or color of configuration of man.
Oh, I have a question, if you don't mind me asking. My question would be, New York Times published this, so I doubt that the news is going to publish fake news. New York Times is not going to publish it. Did they
There's
list the
also-
scientists and the studies and the reports so that people can go back for themselves? Because, there's going to be a lot of people that will listen to this that are non-African that will go, I'm insulted by this comment, but science is proving this to be true.
Yes. The New York Times article is a single migration from Africa populated world defines.
There are those that would argue that studies that are done, are typically done because there are people that are going to try to debunk the truth, right? There are people that are just going to have a struggle. Yeah.
I'm saying everybody can do that. So I'm saying that this study and I'm having some trouble looking at the full article before me right now because they want me to pay for it. But other than that, but it is there.
Okay.
If you Google that, a single migration from Africa populated the world. And last week, Cora, I talked to you about the books, the pair of books, when blacks in the world was black.
Okay.
Volume 1 and 2. And I'm happy to tell you that there are other volumes in the works.
Okay.
They are not volume 3 to 5 are in the works. And they document a lot of things from the earliest records of mankind coming up to and including this present period we are in. That it will come in the fourth and fifth edition of that series.
Okay.
So we are relying on official records. A few weeks ago, or at least a couple of weeks ago, I posted what is considered the earliest record that man made of any kind of writing that has been recovered in the world.
Right.
And it was a script which has the formula for trigonometry, theorem, and I think algebra.
Is that from Timbuktu?
From Timbuktu.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I also posted on my page and that page is named after me, Kingsley Gilliam, just simple Kingsley Gilliam or Kingsley P. Gilliam. And on that I also posted, and that document was at Cambridge University.
Okay.
That it is on clay tablets.
Wow.
I also posted where University of Timbuktu has over 700,000 books,
Oh my.
clay tablets that date back to the earliest beginnings of recorded history.
And Timbuktu was the first university in the entire world. That's
Ever in
Africa.
the entire universe.
Wow. Wow. Where's Timbuktu? For those who weren't
Timbuktu
listening.
is in Mali. And remember, Mali was one of the greatest empires the world has seen.
Okay.
It covered from east to West Africa.
Okay.
Yes. So it was a tremendous empire, and it's one of it has a number of great things.
Musa Masa, he's the richest man in the world. Oh my gosh.
Right.
Oh gosh.
And he had made a mission to try to took an expedition to North America, but never returned.
Right.
So we have all of this, this whole history there where they had all of this, but they were trading with the Aboriginal people of North America, and one major mission from Mali not return. And some years back, I think it was 1971, in Quito, Ecuador, group of black settlers on in Peru, where is it? In Quito, Ecuador. They came into Quito, and they were there. They were descendants of shipwrecked mariners that settled there, and the government in Quito didn't know about them until in the 70s. So what we're saying is that there's a lot of movement and things about things that people didn't know.
Okay.
All these pyramids that you see in North and South America are replicas of pyramids built in Egypt and elsewhere on the African continent.
Okay.
And where are those people today? So this is how, it is fact then that these one migration out of Africa populated the rest of the world, and people landed at different places, Australia, here, there, and elsewhere.
Okay.
And in Asia, China, and places like Cambodia, etc.
Right, right. And that does make sense in terms of see the indigenous community, you see the dark skin, and so on.
And Japan, there are still people in all of those countries, in India, and Thailand and other parts of Asia that still have the full African features, and in Japan as well, and in the Philippines. So those are some from those migrations, and we know in a movie I watched called 500 Years, there was a scene from a city in Asia, and occupied and led by Africans, that had garbage chutes running from upper levels ground.
Right.
And those type of things. So we see, and right now in Pakistan there is ruins of one such city, major city, that is a historic site. Those type of things. So we do have these structures there to show that Africans populated the world. So now, let's get down to, you want to talk about Ethiopia.
Ethiopia.
Okay.
Just before we do that, because there are those in the Favvor Zone that haven't been following us all this time. I know the Tog family has been, but the Favvor Zone people haven't. Can you just, before we get into Ethiopia, talk about why we, as Africans and non-Africans, have not been told the truth about these facts about African civilizations?
Well, the reality is that what civilizations tend to do is to extinguish and vanquish others. And so, for instance, if we look at what happened in the Middle East, a place where Jerusalem is, it was Israel and Judah, and then eventually it was taken over by the Assyrians, and then by the Babylonians, and and everyone did their thing, and the Babylonians, they carted off vast majority of the people into Babylon.
Okay.
So on. So we have those kind of situations that have occurred in history. Now, when we look at it, the Bible talks about different people, including in different parts of the Bible, they talk about, mention the Ethiopians.
Right.
The case of the Ethiopian eunuch.
Yes.
And other Ethiopians.
The Garden of, and also the River of Euphrates, which is the Garden of Eden, the beginnings. Like, this is what I find fascinating, because I'm going to let you speak, but what I find fascinating when I'm reading the Old Testament, and I read about the River of Euphrates, which is Ethiopia.
And the River Tigris, yes.
Yeah,
that is the
that's Africa.
Well, that is where you have Iraq.
Okay.
Is Iraq.
Okay.
Okay, but again, around there was where Jericho stood as a city.
Okay.
And there is a book called The Ascent of Man, done by Bernowski. It was a TV series on BBC television.
Okay.
I used that book in grad school. It talks about, but that is where settled agriculture began, because of the fertile soil, and so the grains used to grow and regrow, and so people recognized there that they could settle down and plant things and support things. So that's where urban living began.
Okay, so I have a question real quick. When we read about the River of Euphrates being Ethiopia, was Ethiopia a different place then than it is now?
Listen to me. Political boundaries have been drawn over and over and over again.
Okay.
And so Ethiopia, at one point, the whole continent was called Ethiopia.
Okay.
The whole continent of Africa was called Ethiopia.
Okay.
And so on. But when they develop into different nation states, then Ethiopia became a nation state.
Okay.
Now,
that's big to know. So before, who named the continent Africa?
Well, I do not know there, but it's not the white man that really did it. They are talking about it being named after some European and this type of thing, but it has not been proved exactly right. However, what we're saying is simply this, that all of Africa was referred to as Ethiopia. Therefore, black people with darker skin, were called Ethiopian through the Bible.
Okay.
And only two places in the Bible I can recall where concept of black came up was Noah's son Ham was reported to be black, and this type of thing. So that's where that word come up. And then in Song of Solomon, Solomon referred to himself, "I am black, but comely, O ye daughters of Jerusalem." So he referred to himself, and you know that Solomon was a man with, they says, 700 wives and 1,100 concubines.
Man, I tell you, if there's any man in the Bible that has made multiple mistakes and still considered a man of God, it would be Solomon. 700. I thought it
And
was
his father
400.
David.
Oh, God. And
And his father
David.
David.
Solomon and David. My goodness. 700 wives. Wow.
So my point is, I'm saying, but so that those are the references to black. It is said that one of Moses' wife was also black and this type of thing. But again, we don't know. But it was not. This was not a characteristic or where the people were really called that, other than the two references that I mentioned. The rest of the Bible, they talk about Ethiopian and this type of thing.
Right.
So then Solomon, in the reign of Solomon, there was also a great king in
Nubia.
called Sheba,
She.
the queen of Sheba,
Yes.
who learned about this black king in Israel and made an expedition to go and meet with him.
Okay.
And she got her entourage and their camels and what have you, whatever they took for their journey, and they journeyed and found Jerusalem. And of course, had audience with, and more than audience, because out of that audience came pregnancy, which led to a child. And there's a whole tribe of Israel in Ethiopia called the Falasha Jews.
Falasha Jews. How do you spell that?
I think it's Falasha Jews. But they have, some of them immigrated to Israel some time back when there was a lot of it. I think during the famine in Ethiopia, and a number of them were given refuge in Israel, but they were not treated like the people, and so they ended up having fight discrimination there.
Okay.
Oh, but there are millions, there are many of them there that are still there today. As a matter of fact, there was a mission, I forget the name of this religious mission that ministered to Jewish people all over the world, provide support for them, whether they are in the Soviet Union, Poland, wherever, all around. And they were also dealing with those groups in Ethiopia.
Ethiopia. Okay. Okay. So I have a question, because I understand, this is my understanding, and I think I heard T.D. Jakes, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that Sheba, or some people call her Queen Makeda, either Makeda, one or the other, that she basically came back to Ethiopia and kept the Hebrew traditions, and was very much against idolatry, and set up like all of these kingdoms that were actually run by, I understand, by women. I could be wrong, but it was this whole sect of Judaism, like you said, the Phoenician Jews, that
Yes.
kept the Hebrew culture.
Yes, they,
and kept,
they maintain the Hebrew culture, yes.
yes, and so they were full-fledged, full-on Jewish people. Now, why is it then that when we learn about the Bible, we learn about black people or African people or Ethiopian people being Gentiles, when in fact a good group of them were not?
Well, the issue that we come up was whether you Jew or Gentile. Gentile, it wasn't a race thing.
Okay.
As far as it was concerned, if you were not Jew and circumcised, you were not chosen people.
Okay.
And outside of that, the people, there was as a matter of fact, in the temple in Jerusalem, there was what was called a veil kept both Jews from those who were non-Jews. So the Samaritans and others who were not that chosen people, they could go to a certain part of the temple, but they didn't get to mingle with others. And so that was the veil. So if you remember, on the crucifixion, it said that the veil of the temple rent in twain.
Yes. Oh wow. That would be that now because okay.
That was the opening up of the temple to all not
people.
just
Okay.
Jews.
That's amazing. It's an amazing word. Wow. Okay, so I'm loving this. So I want to talk a bit about, and this is why it's so important to get people who are learned, and it's so important to study to show yourself approved. I wanted to talk about the divisions that are within our own community as a result of this. So you have people who believe that Ethiopians are not really black people, and you have other people who think that this person is not really black people. And, but again, homogeneous is not the word for African people. There are different cultures within within Africa. And the key to understand is that Africa was considered Ethiopia. So when you're reading the Bible and you hear Ethiopia, it's referring to Africa. It's not referring to that small little place on the map.
Yeah, well, Africa was not a homogeneous place either.
Okay.
And I tell you why. Based on anatomical typology and the work of people like Dr. Ivan van Sertima,
Yeah.
he has documented that there were about 6 different areas in Africa where people evolved.
Okay.
In southern Africa and in different parts, as well as in the East African area. And so, as a result, each of them had some different characteristics based on the climate, the areas of the revolution.
Okay, can you give examples?
Well, one of Ivan van Sertima's lectures, which I know is on YouTube,
Okay.
talked about the anatomical characteristics of the people that were found down in southern Africa, which is in towards the southern tip of the continent.
Okay.
He talked about those to the east, different anatomical features, and some into central parts of Africa, and so on. But he identified the various locations within the continent. When we look at Africa, you got to understand that Africa, in terms of size, is larger than Europe and North America, North and South America combined, and most of Asia. It's not.
Okay.
Is humongous.
Okay, but when you see it on the map, when you see it on the maps that we learn in geography, you don't see the difference in size.
Don't see it, but it takes about 4 or more than that to fly across. It takes from here to Vancouver is 3.5, 4 hours.
Okay.
It takes flying across from the East Africa, the edge of the Sahara Desert, onto west coast of Ghana to Lagos or Accra. It's about 9 hours.
Okay. Wow.
And so that is a kind of thing where you say it is that wide, and if you look, the further up you go, the wider it becomes. Because remember, when you get to the top around Jerusalem and up to those areas, what is now called the Middle East, borders on Europe.
Okay.
Borders on Europe or Asia. Up there. So we're saying that it's a huge breadth of space at the top. So it's a massive landmass. And that is with different climatic conditions. One thing was common among all the people is that they all had mineral in their bloodstream, which was a chemical produced to protect the skin from the ultraviolet rays of the sun. And that gave them a different pigmentation. The pigmentation is always down to dark.
Okay.
And the difference being with Europeans is that they discovered the mutation which resulted in Europeans during the Ice Age, later part of the last Paleontological period, where Caucasides emerged.
Okay.
They found the gene in I can't remember where, but it's back there in the Middle East, where they found those genes, which are the two dominant genes, which changes people's color and height.
Okay. You're saying the Ice Ages is where we see Africans changing to European features. Okay.
Yeah.
And so the hair and the skin and so on and so forth. And this is also now question I have. There are going to be people that will hear this and go, oh, "I am so offended." No, they're going to feel really offended to say you have. How dare you say that European people came from the Ice Ages? What would your response be in terms of facts and materials that people could go and research to find out the science behind it?
I'm saying, look, we have technology has improved so much that you can just go into Google search. As a matter of fact, if you have the Google Assistant, you could talk into it and tell it what you want, and it will find you resource material that is there, that is anchored in scientific literature. For instance, the stuff I'm talking about there, Encyclopedia Britannica, which is recognized as a world resource, lists as being present for over the 200,000 years.
Okay, so then we just debunked that. So for those that are listening, that will, whether it's the cognitive dissonance that will have you offended with the fact, know that you've been taught differently, but if Encyclopedia Britannica, if New York Times, multitudes of science backs this up, then I would say it would be imperative for us to learn that, number one, racism is ridiculous because we really truly are one race. We only morphed into other colors and other cultures based on climate and condition. So in fact, we are all one people, okay? And so racism is dumb. Second thing is that a lot of this is being hidden from us, the agenda to colonize and control and capitalize Africa, because Africa is the richest continent in the entire world. So many benefit from it, from her resources. So to keep us from knowing the truth about Africa, Kemet, science, the universities, the education, it also keeps the oppressors rich. That's just the bottom line, right? Bottom line.
Listen, remember, I talked to you sometime back, one or more of the shows I've been on, about the doctrine of discovery.
Yes.
And about the Carter, the papal bull that Pope Alexander VI issued in 1493, just after Christopher Columbus made it back to Europe. And he congratulated King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain for supporting the voyage of Christopher Columbus, their sons. And that Christopher Columbus discovered new lands, mainlands and islands. And lands with people, and ordered them to go take charge of those lands, occupy the lands, and dominate the people. Because if they are not Christians, they are not humans. So that is the beginning of the foray of Europe into other parts of the world. And as they built, they tried, and how this thing went, and they tried, and they tried to do their settlements and so on, and that's what they did everywhere they went. That proclamation said, those lands that have been discovered and yet to be discovered. So it was not limiting it to those that Columbus found, the claim that he discovered, but that in future you will discover other lands. And that you must do the same. So when they came and discover Africa, as it were, now, prior to that, Don Juan, king of Portugal, had made a beachhead in the great empire of Mali, and had a relationship with the Mali government, people.
Was this the Olmec heads?
The Olmec heads is a phenomenon appearing in Southern America.
Okay.
But what we're saying is that in Mali, which was the great empire at that time, Portugal had some dealings with them.
Okay.
And it was Portugal, Lisbon, the capital of Portugal, was where the Mali, a number of North African mariners and so on frequented Europe that way.
Okay. So there was a
And that's
relationship.
where-
Okay.
That is where Christopher Columbus got sailors for his ships. His Pinta Mine and Santa Maria, which he bought in Lisbon, and he got the mariners in Lisbon to operate the ships on the voyage.
So he went to the best of the best in Mali to get that. Okay.
So those were North African mariners.
Okay.
And the North African mariners were the masters of the sea.
Okay.
They are the ones that developed the chart and compass which still rule the waters today.
Okay. So the mariners from Mali. Wow, that is great history. That is so fascinating. My question would be, Kingsley, in terms of the division between Ethiopia, the Phoenician Jews, Ethiopia, and the rest of Africa, and the division that is among Africans and even within our communities, because we have some that believe that nope, the real Africans are from Ghana, nope, the real ones are from Nigeria, nope, the real ones are from Tanzania, nope, the real ones are Ethiopian. So
They come from all over the continent of Africa.
Okay.
But I can tell you this, those divisions, there have always been divisions among African people, because remember, everybody was nomadic, tribal, and this type of thing, etc., until they settled down in some place.
Right.
But the idea was that they were scrambling for resources and other things, etc., territory. And of course, they had wars. They had every nation, what they call their kingdom or small nation, had their army.
okay.
And they used spears and other kind of implements, this type of thing, but they were quite fighters. And that they fought wars between their peoples.
Something Catherine L.
Just one
Adams.
second, just one second, let me finish the thought. though.
Okay.
So what really happened when Europe, they decided that they wanted to get people from, so they started to enslave the local Indian people, the Arawaks and Tano and other people everywhere. And so that in Santo Domingo, Haiti, Santo Domingo, which is the island of Hispaniola, which now is divided between two nation states, Haiti and Dominican Republic.
Right.
On that island, on Bartolome de las Casas settled. He is the first European recorded to have crossed the Isthmus of Panama. He settled there. And after some time, he left and returned to Europe. He went into the priesthood and came back Hispaniola as a priest. When he came back, he saw the local people dying off because of the slavery imposed on them and the harsh conditions and so on. And of course, diseases that Europeans brought them and all these things. He, in turn, did their condition, and in my personal opinion, out of humanitarian conditions, wrote to King of Spain, King Alexander I, who was the son of King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, and requested him to stop enslaving the local people because they were dying off. It was genocidal. So, but if they really needed to have slave labor to develop the plantation and maintain the settlements, he suggested that they better go to Africa, where there are sturdier type of people, and to capture those people and bring them there as slaves. That was a man of God speaking to another man of God, telling him that he should go and kidnap people and take them from their place.
Oh, gosh. I'm sorry that I'm laughing. Oh, Kingsley, I'm sorry that I'm laughing because I just, I know that I shouldn't laugh. It's not appropriate, but a man of God telling another man of God to go and enslave. We have to be real that this is religion, though. This is the roots of religion. And, it's kind of like, you hear a man of God negotiating with another man of God who's supposed to be filled with the Holy Spirit and born again, or at least have love, telling somebody to go enslave another person like an animal and abuse them. Unbelievable.
Well, the Pope said that if they were not Christians, they were not humans. So what they went on, so he took 3 of those letters from Bartholomew de las Casas for him to get any action. And what King Alexander did was to refer it to the Pope of Rome, who then had a summit of European heads of state, which were all European crowned heads. And they agreed that they liked the idea, but they had a single problem. And that is that prior to Europe deeming itself civilized, they held slaves. The Slavs were their slaves, the slaves of Europe. And that when they became civilized, they decided that civilized people couldn't hold other people as slaves. So they abandoned slavery. And now to take that back to the Europeans, how were they going to sell that? Convince Europe this is now morally right. So they suggested a script that said that the creatures in Africa that look like humans, dark or burnt skins, were on the evolutionary path. Humanity, they stopped evolving. And therefore, just as we are permitted to use the ox, the ass, the horse, and others as beasts of burdens, nothing is wrong, morally wrong, with using them for our benefit. And they found that argument out to the intelligentsias, the writers, the poets, the intellectuals of the day. And they propagated that in all their communication discourse. And as a result, while that was going on, a slaving industry infrastructure was being developed. Took 50 years developing that slaving infrastructure, including building the Elmina Castle on the coast of Ghana to hold them. And when all that was done, they started the enslavement project. That went on by kidnapping these people and taking them and holding them in the most squalid and inhumane condition. And I can tell you, I've toured the Elmina Castle and the Cape Coast Castle and see the conditions under which they were held. And I talk about that sometimes, where the governor at Cape Coast, at Elmina Castle, there's a church in the courtyard where they worship and so on. So they are all Christians and they have their regular worship while they hold the people in these dungeons.
So rewind that again. Say that again. Say that again. Say that again. So there's a church right beside the grounds where
the castle, the Elmina Castle in Elmina, Ghana, is a castle. It's lined with great guns all around it, from north, south, east, and west. And it also has a trench about 12 to 15 feet deep. Surrounding it was filled with water, so that if a slave escaped and they couldn't swim, they drowned. And if, although they couldn't escape, and if anybody tried to invade, they couldn't get to the castle because they would drown in the ditch.
Oh, wow.
And then, on the inside, they had all these compartments, and I told the governor's quarters was on the upper level, overlooking the courtyard. In the courtyard, there were some cannonballs tied to chains, or 500-pound cannonballs. And that was right in front of the women's dungeons. And when the governor would go out on his veranda, order them to let out the women in the courtyard, and he would sit on his veranda and admire their anatomies, and he would order that they point out to the ones that he wanted, and he would instruct the servants or their handlers to those ones and clean them up, feed them, bring them to him in his quarters. And he would have his fill of them. And when he was finished, they would rotate them in, and when he was finished with them, then several other of the staff of the castle have their fill of them. And some of them would get pregnant. And when they get pregnant, they would take them out and put them in a separate quarters not far from the castle, where they could go and visit them, visit their children. If you go to Elmina today, most of the people in Elmina, their complexion look like me.
Okay, light skin.
Yes.
So I just feel like, okay, so I have a question. So you have this Portuguese, right? Raping black women. And his staff.
No, don't get me wrong. I did not say that.
Well,
I didn't say the Portuguese king.
Is it the
I
king?
said the governor of the castle.
Governor, and the governor was European, correct?
Of course,
Yes.
of course.
Okay. So sorry, my apologies. Not the Portuguese king. The governor who was European.
Who was Portuguese, of course.
Who was Portuguese?
Because he was to become a governor for Portugal, you got to be a Portuguese.
Portuguese. So he would have his. Wow. He would pretty much rape because they would have no.
But it's
they have no
again, there are a couple of things. Those cannonballs that are there, the women who refuse to chain to those cannonballs.
Oh my God.
They were forced to drag those cannonballs down. And if they couldn't drag them, they were stationary. And they would do that until they are broken and agree. And if a certain period of time pass and they don't consent, put them in the death cells. And they stay there without water and without food until they die.
Until they die. This is where I think about a whole group of people that were born trauma. They were born, it was forced, it wasn't love. They were born out of rape, born out of trauma, born out of abuse. Whole entire group of Black and Portuguese, which they have the nerve to call. They call that, what do they call that? Instead of calling them multiracial, they call them mulata, which I think is such an insult. Please, if you're European, don't call children who are of mixed race mulata, because that is such an insult. But that is where this comes from.
So my point is, so that's only one aspect of it.
Oh,
but
God.
then you go on and and then they capture those and they bring them, they hold them until the slave ships arrive. And there were times when everyone that was in the death cell would stay there till they die. So, for instance, if one person go into that death cell and they throw another one in, the first one died, the other one would be there with the rotting body and this type of thing with all that stench until they too die. Those were the conditions that God's people impose on others.
Oh my God.
So, now, taking that a step further, you wonder why you have divisions and people don't call themselves African or don't call themselves black or these type of things. It was that kind of treatment and the treatment meted out to people after. For instance, in North and South Carolina, in the United States of America, where plantation owners are faced with uprising on the plantation by slaves. And sometimes they were successful and they killed off people that were running the plantation. And so these planters, they got together, said they needed advice, and they found a German expert, a German professor, and they consulted with him to find out how to control these people. He asked them, do they know where they come from? Africa. Said, yes, some come from Timbuktu, some come from here, some say they come from there. He said, well, they know where they come from. They're not slaves. They are prisoners of war.
Wow.
Prisoners of war are going to fight to the death, get freed, so that they can go back home. So if you want to control them, you've got to get knowledge out of them. And so you got to beat it out of them and do all kind of torture and this type of thing to get it out of them so that they can pass it on to their kids.
Okay.
And this is where, and so on. So this is what. So one professor who was talking about this, he said, look, when I give a lecture, I go into a room and I see 500 Caucasians. And I ask, if you know where in Europe you're from, ancestors are from. And they say yes, and everyone can pinpoint to the very village in the country where the ancestors came from. When you do that with African people, none of them know. Because they skirt it out, they cut it out, they force them to forget all that kind of stuff in order to control them.
Control them. And so is this why we have, especially in the West Indies, there are those that may have been a lighter complexion or those that have been like, oh, don't call me African. Please don't do that.
We were taught, listen to me, when I grew up in Jamaica, we used to hear about the black heart man. When you talk about the bogeyman, the black heart man was a man that went to capture you and cut out your heart. That man it was a black man, it was a black heart man, and this type of thing. Therefore, you get afraid of this type of people. And we were taught that Africans were uncivilized, they live in trees and this and the other. So when I was doing college back in the early 70s, those days, the psychology course that I did, the issue of the African roundhouse and African living in trees and capitalism up. So I remember a particular professor was talking about this and cannibalism. Oh, I said, his name was Terry, something or another. So I said, Terry, I have a problem with that. Every course I take in psychology, I get this thing about African cannibalism. I have never seen any proof of it provided, but I can tell you that in the last 2 years, we have seen 2 examples of white cannibalism, where we had a situation in the Arctic in Northwest Territories, Canada, where there was a medical mission, air evacuation, and the plane crashed. So there was a nurse, a white nurse, and a Indian kid, and the plane crashed, and the pilot survived, eating the flesh of the nurse. And when they examined her body, she was killed by blunt force trauma to the head. It was inconsistent with that of a plane crash. So it is believed, they believe that Hartwell, this pilot, killed the nurse and ate her flesh. So we had that thing hot in the papers at that time. And then plane crash in the Andes Mountain with a football team. And a number of people died. The ones that survived by eating the flesh of the dead. And those were white people. But when I challenged him with that, from that day forward, I've never heard him talk about cannibalism. cannibalism again in any class.
So your psychology, which I find odd, why would be the need to be, why would there be a need, my question would be, you're studying psychology, to talk about black cannibalism, a psychology course. Like, what's the point of
put
that?
it this way, psychology covers a whole range of things in human behavior.
Okay.
And there is the anthropological aspect, there's the psychology, and there's the other aspect which will be more related to sociology.
Okay.
And so on. So they go in and they talk about these things, but this is how they inculcate certain stereotypes in people, perpetuate same understanding.
Right.
So they were going on with that, doing this, and about the roundhouse. We had a mayor in Toronto at one point who said he wasn't going to Africa because he didn't want them to boil him alive.
Oh gosh. So there are these stereotypes. I remember going to church one day and hearing somebody saying that they went to Africa and that they caught some kind of disease and now they're sick. And I just remember feeling like this is just another stereotype. This is another stereotype.
And that not necessarily a stereotype. That could be factual because
yeah.
There are diseases all over the world,
Right.
and in Africa there are a number of diseases that people are prone to. So, for instance, I was preparing for my first trip to Africa in the mid-70s to be part of my organization, the National Black Coalition of Canada, was contracted by the government of Canada to develop Canada's participation and execute Canada's participation in the Second World Festival of Black Art and Culture, which was scheduled to take place in 1975.
Right.
So, as National Vice Chair, they had international festival committee meetings and so on, and so I prepared myself by taking all the needles that were required, the vaccines that were required in order to go there, because there were risks, whether it is drinking water, this type of thing, and so on.
Right.
From different environment, you have that.
Right.
In addition to that, there are typhoid is a common phenomenon there as well, because there is raw sewage running in gutters at the street side,
Right.
in some parts of, like in Lagos and in Accra and some other parts of Ghana.
Okay.
And so on. So there are those real things. On the other hand, you have things like malaria and there are other diseases that come
Right,
up.
right.
So they inoculate you to the best against those.
Against those, okay. Which most people, if they're going on vacation, will do that to protect themselves anywhere. Right?
You have,
Yeah.
it's a requirement.
It's a requirement.
If you're not vaccinated, you wouldn't get the visa.
Right, exactly. Okay.
Yeah, so these are some of the things. So it's not like there you go, for instance, in West Africa, in the Congo and Liberia and a number of places, you had Ebola outbreak and these type of things, etc., etc. So you got to, and those are unique there, but it can be spread anywhere, and so on. So it is not necessarily a stereotype, but it is important that to recognize, because a lot of Africa is jungle. All kind of forested and other kind of jungle and all kind of animals and this type of thing, which in and of themselves spread disease and all kind of predators hunting other predators and this type of thing and so on. So there is enough situation that are in the natural environment to cause different types of disease.
Disease, okay. So as it relates to the subject on divisions, Ethiopia and the divisions, and you talked about, you know, the governor of, the governor and, I was going to say Spain, but it's not Spain, it's Portugal. Right.
But let me point out something. Just let me. So that was what that initial one was Portuguese, but there are dozens of them replicated on the west coast of Africa. The Cape Coast was run initially by the Dutch.
Okay.
It was built and run by the Dutch, and then eventually the British took it over and ran it. And then you have on the coast of Gambia, and on the, you have them. You have others in Ghana too, but those are the two prominent ones. And then as you go, when you there's this Trans-West Highway, which takes you from Nigeria in the eastern part of West Africa onto Mauritania, which puts you at the other side of the ocean.
Okay.
And that highway run along that, and it passes through several countries, and most of them have slave holding facilities in them.
Okay.
So you have there in Gambia, in Senegal, and places like those, and they're the same pattern held through all along.
Okay, so then when you see the distinction in terms of skin color, some being extremely light, some being extremely dark, we're seeing the intermingling of the slaves with the governors and slave, you know.
We see the intermingling of peoples in all ways, because what I remember I told you at the outset that Africans were not homogeneous from the outset, that there were about 6 typologies of Africans initially, and they interbreed and this type of thing, etc. So there would be some of that between them as African peoples as such, because in those days Europeans wasn't evolved yet.
Right, because we're talking about the 200,000 years versus 20 years is a long time. So there was a period of time the world was black. There was only black people. There was only African people.
Absolutely. Because Africans didn't leave the continent until there was that great migration which the New York Times article talks about.
Okay.
And in that great migration, then they moved in droves to different places, because by then they developed transportation mechanisms that could take them far afield on the sea.
Okay. So in terms of divisions that we see, and now understanding the internal hatred or internal racism is what we would call it.
Yeah.
Amongst our own. Yeah.
And what that is, it is the inculcation of certain belief systems by Europeans. So, for instance, people were conditioned to believe that lighter was better and dark was bad. For instance, you may recall, as a matter of fact, I posted a piece today that talk about that, where the you know that Barbados became an independent republic yesterday, a republic. So it moved where the Queen is no longer head of state.
Right.
And I was commenting on that and asked, when will Jamaica and the others follow? Because, as the Governor General of Jamaica pointed out after the George Floyd murder, that the insignia on his Knight Grand Cross of the Royal Order of St. Michael and St. George. Emblem of that, what is on it, it depicts a white angel with his foot in the throat of a black man, who is presumed to be the devil. So these are the ways that these messages get inculcated. White is good and black is bad. Black is evil. And so on. So people then learn that this type of thing is good. Therefore they aspire to becoming that. I remember in what is now what would have been the fourth grade in school in Jamaica. One student, a year younger than me, when he grew up, he was going to go to England and marry a white woman, an English woman, because they learned that English people were better than black people. And it's inculcated in their head. And so a lot of people aspire to all that. And in families, the babies which were born later got better privileges. In Jamaican families and homes, what I know for a fact, and like in my family, for instance, my mother is a very was a very fair-skinned woman of some Portuguese extraction, partially mixed. And her first husband was a Scotsman. Produced 2 children who in North American type would say they are possible. So some people would, and my father was as black as an ace of spades.
Wow. Wow.
So when you look at that, they would say then that we shouldn't belong. You get it?
Yes,
so
I totally get it.
It's the kind of thing, and when I went until independence in Jamaica, if you walk into Kingston and go into a bank, you would not see a clerk that was not fair. It's after independence, particularly under the Michael Manley government, that situation changed.
Colorism.
Yes. And I can tell you that one Jamaican scholar, Ferdinand Henriquez, son of L.A. Henriquez, Henriquez is the largest jewelry businesses in Jamaica. And Ferdinand Henriquez is a sociologist, and he wrote a book called Race and Color in Jamaica. And that book said, its opening paragraph or the introduction, he said, from the day that I was born, my station in life was determined and secure. And went on to show how race and color determine that. So my point is, it is there, and this is why Marcus Garvey, we talked earlier about Negro and this type of thing and how they call people Negroes. Now let me talk about another major phenomenon which occurred. So after they take all these people from Africa and slave this type of thing, in 1885 there was a conference held in Berlin under Chancellor Bismarck. And that every European country was there, but there was nobody from the African continent. It's called the Scramble for Africa. That's when they divided up Africa geographically among the European powers. Go and colonize, and conquer, and control those lands, sources, and dominate the people. And for instance, King Leopold of Belgium, he was reputed to kill more than 15 million Congolese in order to get control of them and his way, and to get all the resources out of the Congo. So it is that kind of thing that has happened.
Goodness, my goodness. And the question that I have is that amongst us, because the topic is on Ethiopia, and you know, we know that, for example, to recap, that Africa was Ethiopia before it was named Africa. We know the history of Bathsheba, of Makeda, or yes, and Solomon, Sheba. And then as we move forward into understanding the diversity amongst Africans, and you talked about the 6 groups of Africans in Africa and how things morphed. You know, we talk about the fact that the world was filled with Africans only for about 200,000 years until the Ice Age. That's where we find other cultures, and there's science to prove this. And I just want to recap, you know, just go read it in New York Times, Google, if you have Siri, do your research and learn. The question would be, how do we now as Africans, because one of the things I had a conversation today, and I won't mention who, I said to this person, you know, it's not beneficial for us as African people to divide ourselves. Say that there's one true group of people and one untrue group of people. We have to now mobilize. We have to now, whether it is South Africa, whether it's North Africa, whether it's Ghana, whether it's, you know, wherever it's from, wherever people are from, you know, whether it's the Caribbean, we now have to say that we now need to unify. And I have a problem with anything that divides people. And so we, you know, while I'm interested in learning more about what you have to say, I don't think there's one true group of black people and that everybody else is impure or not good. My question would be, for the people who say, I don't want you to call me black, can we, before we go, because we have about, let's say, a few minutes before I finish the show at 8 o'clock, for the people who say, I don't like when people call me black, don't call me black, call me either African descent, call me something else. Can you talk about the construct of race and why the term black?
Yes, the contrast of race came up first in 1604 or something. I can't remember the exact year, but it was a Swedish naturalist that had a conference in which he postulated the theory about dividing people into racial typologies. And out of that, they came up with what the various type where they develop and call the black people Negroid and or Negro, and the white people Caucasian, Caucasians, and so on. And then they were even confused because the people who are South Asians now, they even classify them as Caucasians too.
Yeah, so I'm confused with that because I understood that there were some that were called Caucasian and some that were called Mongoloid. So who did they decide were Mongoloid?
So my point is, I'm saying that the South Asians were were considered Caucasian, and the other Asians, like Chinese and others, those in China, Vietnam, and so on, they were called Mongolites because associated with Mongolia.
That is
Mongolia.
that's so Mongolia. Mongolia, Africa, or Mongolia as
No, Mongolia is the northern flank of Asia.
oh,
The whole Mongolian Empire ruled by Kublai Khan and Genghis Khan. They controlled the whole of from Asia into Europe. This type of thing. That was also another dynasty. So they are, and Kublai Khan was quite a warrior because in order to conquer and hold territory, and they did it all on horseback.
okay,
And the greatest warrior of all was his son, Genghis Khan.
okay. Wow. So the term Negroid, Mongoloid, and Caucasian. Now I understand this is like when we are labeling human beings, right?
Being a type, yes.
Yeah, types of human beings, Negroid. So we have Caucasian at the top. I think Dr.
Well,
Hierarchy.
you see what really happened? The classification was a class. It wasn't a substrata thing. It was that these were different typologies of people.
Okay.
Then Caucasians decide that they are the superior race.
Okay, so
and
then-
therefore they must control all the others.
Okay, so then this is where the classification of race, the hierarchy, right?
The hierarchical part came in after that.
Okay.
So this is where, for instance, if you remember the German, the Aryan, they're saying the Aryans are the purest of the pure.
Right, the Caucasus
And
Hills.
that is that was Hitler's mission to rid the world of the non-pure. And
God.
so he decided to purify it by exterminating all those others. The blacks, the others, those that had deformities and other kind of ills, he put them all in the gas chambers and this type of thing, etc. And then he came now for the Jews and so on, and they were exterminating them. But he didn't start with the Jews. It started with others that didn't fit the mold.
The mold
Like remember
of
in 1936, Jesse Owen participated in the Berlin Olympics.
Okay.
And he won 4 or 5 gold medals. And Hitler refused to meet with him or to fraternize or shake hand, which was the custom of the Olympics, that the head of state would meet and greet and shake hands with the athletes, the top athletes. Didn't happen.
It didn't happen. Question that I have for you. So is it the right thing not to call white people Caucasians? Is Caucasians in fact racist? Should we be calling them Europeans instead?
Well, I'm not going to go about, and I won't go into that as a red herring.
Right.
What I'm saying there, they call themselves Caucasians, so they go by that classification, and the classification stand, and until today, the classification of Negroid stand. But what happened is that they called black people Negroes, and the Negroes was this, but that was the dominant vernacular that dominated centuries.
Okay.
And even Marcus Garvey, one of the most prolific advocates, he referred to himself and the people as Negroes, the Negro peoples of the world. And he said the Negro people needed self-improvement because they were so badly downtrodden. And he created an organization, the Universal Negro Improvement Association, created a mechanism to help to improve Negro people as they call themselves.
Okay.
So he organized in the Caribbean and in South America and in North America and so on. He built a movement. And they said, well, if you say you're a nation, where are your kings, your princes, your prime ministers, your men of big affair? He said, we don't have them, but we will create them. And Marcus Garvey went on to create ambassador potentates. He created two of those. Appointed one to Abyssinia, which is another name for Ethiopia.
Okay.
And assigned it to Ethiopia. And the other one was assigned to the League of Nations, the forerunner of the United Nations. And that was the body which was the world body at the time when World War I broke out. And so he had this ambassador potentate to the League of Nations, the Versailles Conference in the Versailles Palace, negotiated the armistice in World War I. So he had a vision that no other black man after him has had.
How do we get the word black?
So the word black, as we say, the first time we see it mentioned was in the Bible when Solomon say, I'm black but comely, or when they refer to Ham as having been black. But in the 60s, late 60s, was the movement, the rising up of the Black Power movement to get away from what they call us and to redefine ourselves.
Okay.
So Stokely Carmichael, now Kwame True, and people like Eldridge Cleaver and Huey Newton, and the group of them that founded the Black Panther Party, they are the ones that all Americans black. They are the ones that did it. Therefore, when they used those terms, their organizations were under intense pressure from law enforcement because anything black was evil. We in Canada established the National Black Coalition of Canada in 1969, and it was perceived to be, and it is the name, implied that we were about to organize and overthrow the civil authorities and what have you. So, so for instance, we had, after the Sir George William University uprising in 1969, which resulted out of racism at that university by a physiology professor who failed most of the black students in physiology, which was a requirement for medicine. These guys did some work and share certain things with some white counterpart who got A's, and then they failed them, and so on. So it resulted in protest and the intercession to government at the provincial and federal levels with no avail. And then they followed Lenin's theory about controlling the nerve center. And so they took over the computer center in Sir George William University in Montreal. And it's called the Ninth Floor. There is a movie, Canada Film Board National Film Board of Canada movie called The Ninth Floor, done by the producer, director was Selwyn Jacob, who is the Western director for the National Film Board. Selwyn Jacob was a student in Canada at the time when that uprising was taking place. And he did that film, so that's something that one can check out on that. But I tell you, but out of this, as a result of that, there was a backlash across Canada against black people because of some of the things that happened there. They saw smoke rising out of the building as if they were burning down the building. Apparently there was a student in there that was making smoke bombs and deploying them, and the smoke was billowing out of the building and so on. So these are some of the things. So they called in the police and they arrested a whole lot of them, 104 of them, and this type of thing. But again, so anyway, Roosevelt Douglas was a graduate student at McGill University, and he and Ann Coulter, who was a medical student at McGill University, both were Ann Coulter was a citizen, and Roosevelt Douglas was from Dominica. His father and his brother was in government in Dominica.
Okay.
But he was a landed immigrant. And after 5 years, we had what we call domicile status as a landed immigrant. And he was, there was an order from the Justice Department to speed up the trial of Roosevelt Douglas, because even though he might be deportable, if he delayed beyond such date, he would no longer be deportable because he would acquire domicile status.
Right.
And they put Douglas on the plane less than an hour before his domicile status kicked in.
Okay.
Deported him from Canada.
Okay.
So I can tell you, so we see this, but I'm telling you that within that context, why I'm telling you how they view this organization as black. So they had declared this Roosevelt Douglas a security risk. And I sent telegrams to Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau, Ron Basford, who was Minister of Justice, and Warren Allman, who was the Solicitor General, and demanded that they reconsider this designation because it wasn't based on fact. I gave an interview to CBC television through their affiliate in Sudbury, KNC TV.
Okay, can we pull that up on YouTube? Is it on YouTube, that interview?
No, you wouldn't find that. No, that was back in 1975.
Okay.
And that interview, well, it was broadcast on the national news.
Okay.
I think it was about 9 o'clock. They ran the national news, CBC national news.
Right.
Just as the item finished, even before the news broadcast completed, got a call from a man identifying himself as Corporal Meikle from the local RCMP detachment. And he wanted to know about this National Black Coalition of Canada.
Okay, because what, they thought you were Black Panther?
Well, this is what all these things.
Oh, God.
They take these things for the threat to society.
Right. So the word black intimidates people. It's intimidating.
So my point is, this is what I'm telling you. So when the black, by that time, the Black Power movement was rising, and then with this organization with that name, then that ring alarm bells.
Okay, so people are trying to. So it's another form of slavery, though. I find it interesting, and this is where I love having these controversial talks on my show. I had one person who said to me, "Whoa, you're really bold." Like one person, I think I'm going to be interviewing him in 2 weeks. He's a scholar, African scholar. He's actually from a descendant of Africa, and we're having a show. We want to have a show on the views on those who do not have enslavement as a part of their history as a black man, and myself having history of enslavement, and just having that conversation. But he said, and I want to send a shout out to Nell, and I will be calling you back soon. He said you're really bold. I said, yeah, I am really bold, because it seems to me like it's another form of enslavement, the fear that people will mobilize, black people will rise up,
Well,
black people, it's just constant fear and need to suppress.
There is a fear of that, and it is rooted in psychological and other literature. We had, a few years ago, one of the things that I did, we had you talk about my organization, the Black Action Defense Committee. We represent community against police violence and police brutality, etc.
Yes.
And there was this shooting death of a black man, a South Sudanese, in Toronto by Toronto police. His name was Andrew Luku. And our organization represent, have standing at inquests.
Right.
And at his inquest, he had a professor of psychology from U of T told the jury that black people are perceived to be bigger and stronger and more angry and more these type of things and more a threat to people. So when the police see and is dealing with a black person, those are that black person poses a greater threat to them by virtue of black. That is deep in psychological literature, and so we have to debunk some of these kind of perceptions that this goes on. But remember this, these values have been inculcated by the colonizers and the oppressors, because they have to hide the truth about what went on, because they're saying civilization of the world, civilization began with them.
Right, and we know science is saying that's not true.
There is nothing like that, as Professor John G. Jackson will tell you. Africa civilized Europe 2 times. Quote. First time was when the Egyptians, first the Greek, the Egypt and Kemet, they educated the Greeks and gave it to the Greeks. And they took it back to Europe and they passed it on to the Romans.
Right.
And the Romans lost it. And for 500 years there was a period of a dark age period in Europe where there was no civilization until the Moors conquered Spain and civilized Spain and spread it out across Europe. And so it's twice that Africa civilized Europe.
Okay. So we're coming down to the close of the show. What would you like the listeners on Black Rose of Durham, on TOG Networks New York, also in Virginia and worldwide, because it's internet, so it's not just local, but worldwide. As black people, first of all, it's okay to call ourselves black, nothing wrong with that, or those of African descent. What do we need to do to reclaim who we are as African people? What is our responsibility, Christian or non-Christian, agnostic, whoever you are? What do we need to do?
Marcus Garvey said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. We can only do this by exploring these and look for real strength. Learn and understand how these things got inculcated in us. And sever ourselves from it and emulate other things. Because as long as they control your mind,
Control you.
they control you. And let me point out two last comments I want to make is that the city we're talking about uniting Africa. The problem we have with Africa is because of the colonial pattern, the communication, and all the resources and all these linkages are from Africa to Europe to the various capital cities that had once colonized them. So what we are doing, we are trying to work and to say this new breed of African intellectuals need to propagate the importance of trans-African communication and trade and everything, free trade with Africa, eliminate the requirement for passport from one and visas from one part of Africa to the other. Those are some of the things that you need to do. You got, because nobody else is going to do it for you. China is coming in and taking over.
I'm mortified by that. I am mortified by the news that China, it's like China's taking over Africa.
Well,
It's
what I'm
unbelievable.
saying, so my point is Africa better unite or dog eat their supper.
Oh my
But
God.
again, they got to trade internally and share technology internally, because let me tell you, Africa is no backwater. They have all kind of scientists and all kind of things. For instance, if you see what happened in South Africa, they just did, just yesterday, a couple of days ago, identifying this new variant in the gene. Why? Because South Africa have the best, some of the best immunology people in the world.
Right.
Because they fought over the last 2 decades on the HIV virus.
Okay.
And these are the kind of things. So they have tremendous skills.
Right.
And they share it with the world, and the rest of the world is punishing them as if they are the culprit. But what we have been saying all along is this, that when you have a disease, a virus like this, it doesn't get wiped out until it's wiped out everywhere.
Okay.
So the only way to attack it is to hit it with the vaccine in every country. But what these affluent countries do, they buy up all the vaccine, and there's not enough to go to the other countries, and they don't have the money, and therefore then they are exposed. And the longer the virus remains out there, the more it replicates. And the more it replicates, the more it
Harder it is
mutates.
to get rid of it.
And then there are different strains coming up, and there will be more. So they can say they're punishing Africa. Africa will eventually deal with it, but the rest of the world will live with it.
Goodness. What can we do as Black people to, number one, it's important to know your history, not just send your kids to European and colonialized schools that are teaching us a whole bunch of lies about who we are. And then what do we do as a people to support Africa? And the third question I have, I mean, I know I only have 23 minutes because I was watching, I can't remember her name, she's a fireball, you wouldn't know I'm talking about, who talked about the French. Oh my goodness gracious, even up until this day, how impossible it is. Like, we have people that would say, well, you know, you're so divided. You Black people don't know how to get along.
But we have seen, Cora, what is happening? The Europeans have had a hegemonic hold on the rest of the world, but particularly Africa and the Caribbean.
Right.
And let me tell you this. What they're doing, what it is, this is all about, it's about resources, and to do that and to keep people in the dark or to try to control them so that they cannot get certain knowledge and this type of thing because they are afraid of what will happen if the black man never gets liberated fully of what they did to us. But I can tell you, this situation, what we have to do, we need to educate our children, And what I used to do back in the 70s, I would drive from Toronto, from Sudbury to Toronto, 270 miles, to learn to work with kids, to prepare them to fight against racism and give them the upper hand in academics and so on. So you give them enrichment programs and this type of thing, and also give them this history so they understand their history. And when we get enough people that from childhood that learn about these parts of history, then they will be less likely to accept the nonsense which they get in the school system. And so on. So what I'm saying to you, black people all over the world, and whether you call yourself black, African, or Jamaican, or Afro-American, Afro-Canadian, Afro-American, Afro this or that, whatever you call yourself, if your pigmentation is black, educate your kids with this type of knowledge so that they will become strong and will not succumb to the pressures that they are going to be getting in school. In the United States now, they are so afraid. You see in Texas, they're withdrawing all books that talk about black history, blacks are this. They're talking about what they talk about critical race theory.
Yes.
Nobody teaches critical race theory in any elementary or high school nor even university. It's only in law school that they deal with this kind of material and so on. And then, but it sparks a bogeyman kind of thing for the Republican politicians and the people from Fox News, you know, like Sean Hannity and those that propagate all kind of conspiracy theories, because they don't want people to know about what happened in Wilmington, North Carolina. They don't want people to know what happened in Greenwood. You know, out there in Oklahoma, so on. So these are all the other atrocities that have taken place, and the lynchings and the number of lynchings that took place in southern United States and are still happening. You look at the case down in Georgia, the killing of this young man. These three people surrounded him, and they said they cornered him like a rat. They three pickup trucks, and one is taping the whole episode. And then they claim self-defense.
Unbelievable.
And we see
Written
the corrupt
out.
system. Prosecutors refuse to do anything around this. And now a third came, and look what you have, a conviction for murder for all three of them. This is the South. I've been down there, I've driven there with trepidation. And there's I know I used to drive down to Florida and back. I drive through North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and some of those places you wouldn't even venture to stop for gas.
No, well, I feel that. But listen, I wake up every day fearful because I know.
So my point,
it's not.
So my point is, I was driving from Palm Coast, Florida, coming to Toronto, and when I got to a place called Valdosta, which is maybe about 75 miles north of the I-75, of the I-10, a cruiser, a trooper pulled me over, and the man said, get out the car, and put your hand on the car, and he spread eagle me against the car, and then he started to pat me down, and then he took out my wallet out my pocket. I asked, what are you doing with my wallet? This type of thing, and we go on, and this became a big thing, and what he's arresting me for, claimed that I was driving 166 miles an hour. And the car I was driving was governed at 136 miles an hour. Didn't go beyond that. But then they took me to jail, and they said, well, they're bringing in one Negro, and I said, well, what my race got to do? Well, that's how we do it down here, and so on.
Oh my
so,
God.
The guy turned to me, look at me, I have 2 kids in car seats in the car, sleeping, and my wife with me. He said, is that your wife in the car? I said, yes. Does she have a driver's license? I said, she wasn't driving. He said, why you need that? Well, you going to jail.
Oh my.
This type of thing. And my wife drive behind him because she couldn't let him out of sight, but he's speeding like hell, and she's scared of driving that fast, but she couldn't let him out of sight because she don't know what he would do with me. So, so I can tell you that it's still down there, and I know if you look at these things, there's just so much of that down there. People got to wake up and look, smell the roses, but your knowledge is power.
Yes.
And my friend, I'm saying that there are so many books. I talked to you about the Ivan van Sertima books.
Yes, before they
Google
came.
Ivan van Sertima, Google Renaud Carosidi, and Google John Heinrich Clark, Google John G. Jackson, and many more. And I say there were 2 books I talk about at the beginning there. When the world was black. Get those 2 volumes. You can get them on Amazon in paperback now for $24 or something.
Okay.
Then, because believe me, there is knowledge there that you will not uncover anywhere else.
Not going to find this in the university. Yeah. Unless you go to Claflin with Dr. Catherine L. Adams, but outside of that, you're not going to hear this in universities,
Well,
unfortunately.
and I'm saying, look at this. When you go, you look at these things, they show you that he has about a third of a page where he lists the scholars, including those that I just named, and dozens more that contribute to this body of knowledge that they draw from to do these volumes.
I am ordering my book next week. It's called When the World, what was it called? It's called When the World Was Black.
When the world was black.
Okay. That's going to be, and you know what? For those of you that are listening, great Christmas presents. Buy it.
Absolutely, and they're
Yeah.
cheap, only $24.
$24, man.
For volume 1 and 2. So there are 2 volumes, volume 1 and 2 available now, and it's $24 each.
Yeah, that's a great Christmas present. So get out, buy it for your kids, your grandkids. As a matter of fact, do book clubs. I think I might even want to do a book club on radio in the new year, where I'm going to have visuals and sign up the Claflin classes and other classes, and we will go through that book together, read it from week to week, and talk about it. Because I feel like my platform in radio, what I'm so grateful about is that I have a worldwide reach. And I have the freedom to teach the truth, right? And although I get hit and a lot of people are afraid of the truth, it is the truth. And what I'd love to do is get a number of people reading this book and us reading it together and just going through it chapter by chapter and learning the truth. Because this is what it's going to take. It's when the Bible says study to show yourself approved, we're not just talking only about the scriptures. You need to know who you are. You need to know where you came from, who you are, the truth about who you are, and reclaim that and teach that to your children. And one thing that I love that Floyd Heath said a few weeks ago, he said, look, loving me doesn't mean I hate you. So anyone that would say you're racist, black power, you're divisive, it's that, no, none of that is the case. We as black people are simply just reclaiming what is rightfully ours, and that is the truth. And so, Kingsley, we got 12 minutes before the end of the show. I want to thank you so much. Every single time you're on, it's profound. I will upload those 3 videos to you and give them to you. And also, for those Favvor and Tog, I have a section under difficult discussions, specifically addressing Africana studies. I want people to re-listen to these radio shows and have group discussions. If you're a class, if you're an educator, please have the discussion. If you're a church leader, if you're a pastor, you have a primarily black congregation, get on difficult discussions and start listening to the shows and have group discussions and spark the fire in learning the truth about who you are as an African, because it's in that you're going to gain the confidence in navigating in this world, and it's in that our children are no longer lost to the lies of that they're subhuman, that they're not important, and that their place in this world is of no value. Any last words, Kingsley, before we sign out for the night?
We are what we eat, so eat good, nutritious foods.
Yes.
It gives you great brain power, and eat. Use your eyes to feast on all these good historical books and documents that we talk about, and any question that you have regarding race, blackness, people, and different type of questions, ask your Google Assistant. Believe me, you will be amazed to know what can come up at your finger's tip.
Wow.
And so on. But I tell you, there are certain treasure troves. Remember I talk about the abridged, general history of Africa.
Yes.
There are 8 volumes, and now 3 more are being added. There is a 9th volume, and there is a 10th and 11th in the works.
Build your own libraries. Build your own libraries. Start and and pass it on to your children.
Because that's where you have the knowledge. When something come up and you don't know, you go and turn to those books and you find the answers. This type of thing, and you can speak with authority because you can quote the sources.
Right. That's
the last other thing I want to say, and I implore everyone that have small children to try within your community to organize special Afrocentric education classes for them, because it is powerful. Sudbury is the only community in Canada, black people, where we never encounter the phenomenon of people dropping out of school, black kids dropping out of school and so on. But cohort after cohort after cohort, from the 70s until now, all the black kids in Sudbury finish elementary, high school, and go through tertiary education. And it is because of the early works that we did there in the 70s. And I don't know, I have 3 students that assisted me with that project during those periods. Beulah Morgan, who ended up becoming a professor at her Clarendon College in Jamaica. Cynthia Brazier, who became a PhD psychologist. She's from Nevis. She's in the process of moving back to Nevis as we speak. And Violet, her married name is Violet Violet Jean-Baptiste. Violet is a geologist and major geology this in Guyana, run big corporations and this type of thing. So what we are saying, but they were students at the time when I was doing early childhood education. I set up that program for kids and run it as a kind of lab program for them. And believe me, it turned miracles. And you can replicate those things everywhere.
Okay, so we need our own Afrocentric schools. We need that, and we need to teach our children the history in the proper context. As I learned about pedagogy and the importance of teaching things in its right context. It's important that we have teachers like yourself teaching things based on the truth, not based on the narrative that Black people are subhuman. Kingsley, I want to thank you so much for being on Difficult Discussions. This was so powerful. I think we made history again. And I definitely will have you back. I think you're going to be back next week, December 6th again. And then I have someone else that's coming in. We're going to be talking about what it's like to not have enslavement as a part of your history as an African. And so, I'm really, really looking forward to closing out 2021 with so much knowledge and giving this to people. And so I want to thank you for being with us and taking the time to prepare and share and continue to do the work. May God bless you in your work and cover and protect you and your family as you move forward in dismantling anti-Black and systemic racism, but also being an elder in the community.
Good night and good morning to the listeners all around the world. And it's been a blast. I'm sorry I couldn't hear your questions or comments, but send them in to Cora, and hopefully we'll be able to see what your thoughts are. And if I have made mistakes and you have corrections, don't hesitate to put it up, because I'm not looking on a script.
Right. Okay, well, this is awesome. Thank you so much, Kingsley. You have a blessed Monday, and we'll see you next Monday.
Thank you.
Okay, then. Bye-bye. You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, family, that was awesome. Like, I always leave these shows feeling so fed, feeling so amazing. You have the great Kingsley Gilliam teaching us about Ethiopia, the term Black, the term African, and why calling yourself Black is not a bad thing. I hear people say, don't call me Black. No, that's okay. Understanding the roots behind, why we don't want to be called Negroid or Negroes, because that was something that was assigned to us. We are actually from African descent, or Black people. It's okay. You can call us Black. Hence, the Black Rose of Durham. Black Rose. That was the reason I wrote the song Black Rose, was to remove the stereotypes of what it means to be Black. Look, we've got 3 minutes, and I cannot believe that we are ending the show. It felt to me like 2 minutes. I mean, the discussion was just so awesome. I fully enjoyed it. I want to thank all of you for being a part of Difficult Discussions today. And I wasn't planning to end the show with the song Black Rose, but I want you to know that I wrote this song from a place of reclaiming my Blackness as beautiful. And I want to dedicate it to the Tog family. I want to dedicate it to those at Favvor Zone. I want to dedicate it to those in Italy and all over the places. You are Black. You are beautiful. You are a blessing. And I want to spark that fire in you reclaiming who you really are. So signing out from Canada, Ontario, a little place by the name of Bowmanville, is a Black Rose of Durham with the track Black Rose. You have a wonderful Monday. Till we meet again next week at 5 p.m. at www.theblackroseofdurhamradio.com.
I'm the black rose in your garden, yes. You don't know what to do with me. Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm the black rose in your garden, yes. You're not gonna stop or accuse me. I'm the black rose in your garden, yes. You don't know what to do with me. Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm the black rose in your garden, yes. You're not gonna stop or accuse me. You see that sun is shining on my life. There ain't absolutely nothing you do stop me. You see that sun is shining on my life. There ain't absolutely nothing you do stop me. I'm the black rose in your garden, yes. You don't know what to do with me. Whoa, yeah, yeah. I'm the black rose in your garden, yes. You're not gonna stop or abuse me. Whoa, 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 whoa.
my prayer. Preserve my life from fear of the enemy. Hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the insurrection of the workers of iniquity.
Are you feeling lonely, dejected, or on the verge of...
Prayer preserve my life from fear of the enemy. Hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the workers of iniquity. Hear my voice, O God, in my prayer, preserve my life from fear of the enemy. Hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the workers of iniquity. Hear my cry, O God, O God, O God, O God, and please attend unto my prayer. Hear our prayer, O Lord. We can't make it without you. Oh, we need you now. Oh, hear my voice, oh God. Oh, and in my prayer, preserve my life from fear of the enemy. Oh, now unto him who is able to keep me from falling. Amen.
Locked into the Black Rose of Durham radio show with your host, Marie. It's now 5:54 p.m. on the 19th of September. This is the gospel 3 hours of power, Holy Spirit, encouragement, empowerment, inspiring vibes. We've truly met with the Lord Jesus Christ. And what's so interesting is I felt that impression to for that individual. I just believe by faith that you are set free, and every other individual that needs prayer, that just agree by faith. You know, God says that if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you don't have to have this big mountain moving faith, but it's the size of a mustard seed. You would say to this mountain, be thou removed, cast in the midst of the sea. So I believe that you are healed by the stripes of Jesus Christ. Everything that you need, God will provide for you through this storm. For those of you, Lord, that may not be struggling with addiction, but something else, whether financial need, relational need, crying out and saying, Lord, I feel alone. I don't want to be alone. and it's COVID and I'm so tired and why is everything going wrong? You might be someone else that might be feeling much anger and much envy and much hatred, and you're just spewing all kinds of things out of your mouth and just a toxic mess. Nothing you ever say or do is even positive because you have so much resentment and bitterness. Life has not treated you well. And so filled with bitterness and anger towards everyone and even God. You know what? I would say to you that that's not the way to live. That's a quick way to die. You can be walking zombie. You could be alive but dead. It's not horrible. You can be alive but dead. And God wants you to be alive, and He wants you to live, and He wants you to have joy. So I just invite you to invite Him into your circumstance. Allow Him to change your mind, change your heart, change your thoughts, change your life. Will you have a perfect life? Will you be free from obstacles and pain? No. But what I will say is that you will always have someone that you can trust, someone who's consistent, someone who honors His word. So I want to invite you to know Jesus Christ. Coming to the end of the show, and I want to thank you so much for being with me. It has been my pleasure to share the love of God with you in these past 3 hours. I just want you to be encouraged and to move into the next 7 days of your week, that God loves you, that He will help you, that He will give you the strength to get through difficult times. This is a gift that I give to you, and the gift I give is Jesus Christ. Until we meet again, I hope you can join me tomorrow on Difficult Discussions, where we have Dr. Catherine Adams taking us through Africana Studies. We are on week number 3, and it's so exciting. I do have an interactive number, and you can call in and make your comments and any suggestions. And I invite you to be with me on Wednesday for the Black Rose of Durham radio show. After the show from 6 to 8, I'm on the TOG network on 105.3 in New York City. Streaming live from Durham, Canada. And Monday, tomorrow, I am streaming from 4 to 5 on the TOG network as well. And coming next week, we're going to be streaming prayer. In addition to me praying for you, guess what? On Thursdays, you'll be able to call in if you have any needs, if you have any concerns, if you're feeling depressed, oppressed, and de-stressed. On Thursdays from 5 till about 3 till about 5 or 7 p.m. I'm going to have the prayer line all the way from New York, and you can call in and get prayer for yourself, for your family, and have all of your needs met. It is my pleasure to be in partnership with the TOG networks in New York, and they've been doing this thing a long time, and they've helped so many people overcome in these tough times. So it's going to be my pleasure to introduce them to you. Coming soon is DJ Proclaimer from the UK. He's going to be doing Mondays and Wednesdays, 1 hour with us, and I'm so excited to have him. He'll be coming in a few weeks. So we got some great things happening. Jackman Jones, the last Friday of every month. So if you're into house music and you love your house, please tune in from 9 to 11 the last Friday of every month. It is your girl, Cora Reed, the Black Rose of Durham, signing out. You know that God loves you. He's with you in the midst of your struggle. He will give you the grace, the wisdom, the peace, the blessing you need to move into your next week. God willing, until we meet next Sunday again from 3 to 5 p.m., the Lord richly bless you. Know that we are truly better together and we are apart. I'm going to close out with this track entitled, I Need You To.
We're all a part of God's body.
At Tropical Smoothie Cafe, one taste and you're hitting refresh now, letting loose now, busting a move now, cranking up the beats now, hands in the air now, feeling free now. You're on Tropic Time now at Tropical Smoothie Cafe.
Get away from the hustle and bustle with Tropical Smoothie Cafe's cranberry truffle and very berry cranberry smoothies and new caprese grilled cheese. Order ahead online or in the app for curbside, carry out, or delivery at participating locations.
Tropical Smoothie Cafe. You're on Tropic Time now.
Welcome to a new way to earn your degree. Welcome to a school that puts your needs at the top of its list. Welcome to a place that gives you the tools to help you be successful. Welcome to Strayer University. Enroll in a bachelor's program and we'll give you a new laptop to help you complete your coursework. So go ahead, start your bachelor's on the right foot with the right tech, and welcome to the new you. Strayer University, out with the old school. Visit us at strayer.edu to learn more. Eligibility rules, restrictions, and exclusions apply. Strayer University is certified to operate in Virginia by Chef.
Hello, this is Discover, and we take customer service very seriously. We know that if you have a question or concern about your credit card, that's a serious matter, and you need to talk to a real person about it. So we offer around-the-clock access to seriously talented representatives in the USA. Again, it's a serious endeavor. The only funny thing about it is Bob. If you call us and Bob answers, you're in for a treat. Get 100% US-based customer service and talk to a real person day or night. Discover, exceptionally common sense.
When it comes to working at Geico, our best advocates are our employees, like Michael. But since he is so focused on growing his career, we hired an actor to read his story.
If you want a job where you get out as much as you put in, Geico is the best place to work. Plus, we promote from within, so there are no ceilings placed on your opportunities.
They even offer parental leave to full-time employees. So there's nothing stopping him from going all the way to the top. But not too high. He's scared of heights.
Ready to start your career, Fredericksburg? We're hiring claim sales and service agents. Apply online today at geico.job/Fredericksburg.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first edition of the Soul System Show right here on the Black Rose of Durham Radio Network. My name is Jack Van Jones from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and I'm very pleased to bring you this monthly show of nothing but soulful house for 2 hours on the last Friday of every month from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And welcome to all the listeners of the Black Rose of Durham Radio Network. Big up to Coral Reed for allowing me to do my thing here on the radio network. And I'm going to bring you some wicked vibes, some soulful, some feel-good music, if you will, for your Friday night. Right now, up on the deck is Junior Jack of Glory. It's called Hold Me Up. It is the Michael Gray extended mix. You get that right now on TrackSource or Beatport or anywhere you can find music. And it does go a little something like this. I am Jack Van Jones. This is the Soul System Show, first edition right here on the Black Rose of Durham Radio Network. And always saying on the Wednesday Shakedown, it goes a little something like this.
try to